welcome to the first episode of After the Tassel. This is a podcast that has been started by the Office of Advising and Career Development to kind of target some issues and questions that we all kind of deal with after we graduate, beyond just getting a good resume and getting past a job interview. And so we're going to be taking a deep dive into what it looks like to be in a career in these tumultuous times. I'm joined here by Michelle Craighead, Mandy Plybon, and Talisha Washington, our first special guest. Talisha, will you give us a bit of a background on you?
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Really appreciate it. It's just awesome that you guys are doing this, and I think it will definitely be so beneficial to the alumni and just the students here to give just some guidance and direction, as they continue their 4 years or whatever years that they have left here at Westminster. So I am the Senior Women's Administrator for Westminster College Athletics, and I'm also the head women's and golf coach as well. So got a lot of different duties, and just my main thing is making sure that the student athletes are being heard. Mm-hmm. Not only that, just as well as just coaching my team as well. Of course, that's the main reason why I was brought here to coach the women's basketball team. But primarily is to establish that connection with all of our students.
Right.
So.
I love that. And this week we'll be kind of targeting diversity issues, those topics. And with that being said, I would like to say our sponsor, or our co-sponsor for this episode, is the Center for Faith and Service. So thank you for all of your support. We're going to go ahead and get into some just basic questions. Michelle, if you would like to take the lead on that.
Sure. Tell us a little bit more about your career path after you graduated from Westminster College.
As a senior here at Westminster back in 2013, I did an internship at the Y, which ultimately led me into attaining a full-time position at the Y as the sports and director for youth and adult sports. And so I did that for about 9 years. In 2018, I went over to the Missouri State High School Activities Association to do just a little bit more of high school programming, and we focused a little bit more on the administrative side of high school athletics, and then we also hosted state championships, and as well as dealt with just high school sports in an entirety, talking about the rules, talking about just different bylaws and things like that all high schools are made up of. So all high school athletics.
Called me out during that one game.
Probably. Yeah, that you can respond back to MSHAA for that. Yeah, absolutely. And so then after my time with MSHAA, I spent a year at MSHAA. So in 2019. I was promoted to the head women's basketball coach. Back in 2019. So that's kind of been my career path up to this point, and just with my background in athletic administration, that also allowed me to become the senior women's administrator here at Westminster.
Great.
Awesome. This is not obviously on our list right here in front of our faces, but you're from Fulton.
Mm-hmm.
So what led you to coming to Westminster? Did they recruit you? Did something interest you about the campus? How did you get here?
So it's a little different. So being from Fulton, growing up, you're like, you always have that admiration to, all right, I'm getting out of Fulton, I'm gone, right? And so, and so I kind of overlooked Fulton. I was recruited by William Woods and Westminster, and I didn't give anybody the time of day. I was just like, I know, I was a little cocky. I was horrible. If I could go back, I would slap myself multiple times. But I just was thinking bigger and better. Mm-hmm. And so I went to my after I graduated high school, I went to Missouri Southern down in Joplin to play. Originally, I was going to play basketball, but that required a lot at the Division II level. And at the time, I had my daughter was about 2 years old, and so I wanted to go away.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I wanted to go away, and then I was like, well, once they told me the schedule, like they told me I had to report like the summer of as soon as I graduated, and I'm like, I want to spend time with my family and friends and my daughter, and so I decided to not do that. I was kind of already when I made that decision, it was a little bit too late, and so I just decided to play softball. The coach found out that I was coming to play basketball, decided not to. He was like, okay, well, play softball for a year. So I played softball, and it was great. I had a little bit more time that I could come back home every now and then. However, it just wasn't my sport. Like, I love softball, love the game of but I like softball, but I love the game of basketball. And so my semester, the spring semester of my freshman year, I reached out to the coach at the time, which was Tracy Braden, and I said, I'm looking to come back home. I would like the opportunity to come and tour and visit and come play for you. And without a question, she said, you name the date. And so, long story short, I came here, and to be honest with you, that was not choosing Westminster in the first place was probably one regret that if I could look back on, and I would choose Westminster in the first place. And not only because, for a couple of things. I went out and experienced the classroom sizes, experienced just being a collegiate athlete at the Division II level. But then when I came here, it was a different feel. At Missouri Southern, I didn't really feel like I had that connection with my professors. And then when I came here, it was different. Like, I felt I could approach my professors and talk to them. And, it truly helped me see things outside of just sports. Because that's, as a high school athlete, like, that's sports. That's just all I've known for all my life. And being at Westminster, it allowed me to get a bigger concept of life after sports. And so I would say that that's what led me to Westminster. And so if I could go back and do it all over again, I would choose Westminster.
Well, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Absolutely.
I think we'd all make some different choices.
Absolutely. And and I'm glad I everybody goes through a certain path, right? Mm-hmm. But now, as a coach and as a, recruiter, I sit here and even just local talent, I'm like, look, things aren't always what they seem. A lot of people, especially nowadays, student athletes, focus on the title, what's behind the school of athletics. Is it Division I? Is it Division II? Is it NAIA? Is it, they see Division III as a last resort. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't get, the full athletic experience. I always tell my kids, yeah, we're Division III, but this program is going to be treated like a Division I program. Mm-hmm. You're going to be doing morning workouts. You're going to be doing study halls. You're going to be doing team bonding stuff. Just traveling. Like, a lot of people don't realize that. And so now that I took that path that I went through, now I can go back and say, hey, I was in the same situation as you. Mm-hmm. Come to Westminster. And I think that, honestly, because I went that path, I think when I go and recruit and I talk to these kids, they're like, Coach T is right. It's just all about how you, reach out and connect with others.
So if you could offer your college age self any advice, what advice would you give her?
Besides going to Westminster.
The 18-year-old Talisha.
I would say, look, Look, T, you have got explore your options and don't settle on, don't settle on what you think you want to do. Go and experience it. Honestly, I would tell myself to go on multiple college visits. Now, I think, 10 years ago, just times are just continuing to evolve. I see more kids going on visits now, whereas back when I was in high school, I mean, you went on visits, but it was only because mom or dad made you. You know what I mean? And so now it's kind of a different culture, really, dealing with this generation of students. But I would say experience all your avenues. See what it's like if you can get into Division I. See what it's like at the Division I. See what it's like at the Division II. See what it's like at NAIA. See what it's like at Division III. But really look into and understand that don't just base your decision off of sports. Base it off of where you're going to get the best academic education. Because after 4 years, a very, very small percentage of athletes, even at the collegiate level, go on to the professional field, and play at the professional level. You got to get an education, because I see it as this. You got a shelf, and on that shelf, you got, your produce and things like that, but there's an expiration date, right? And as soon as that expiration date hits, you're taken off the shelf. And then what? Right? And so
then what do you do?
Then what do you do, right? And so that's one of the things that I would go back and say, hey, life isn't all about sports. Find your niche. Find your niche academically, because ultimately that's going to carry you, not sports.
Yeah, and I think you said it best. You like just saying like explore all of your options, because I think that's a problem that plagues a lot of students even now. Whenever I was going, like I'm a junior, and up to now I have changed my major 4 times.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
Yeah.
Right there with you.
And like you said, it's up to you individually. It's not up to like your parents. It's not up to your friends. Because I got a lot of peer pressure to be a teacher and stuff like that, and I started getting to the education program. I'm like, this is not for me.
Right.
And so it really expands just from playing sports and picking your academics, but also like going to college to figure out who you are and to gain that kind of a worldview, to really shape who you are, why you the way you are. And really just building your character. And I think you are a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and kind of just touching on that, though, building character, you got to get more involved. I think a lot of kids, a lot of high school students, the volunteer spirit is not there as it used to be. And I get it. People want to make money. I totally get it. I'm right there with you, right? Somebody asked me to do something, how much you pay me, right? But if you really, truly want to get somewhere, you want your foot in the door, you got to start going to these, the college fairs, and then when you're in college, you got to go to the business fairs, you got to get out there and make yourself seen.
And use resources.
Yeah, absolutely, because
even if you don't think you need it,
that's huge.
You should use resources.
Which
that's
can
huge.
be found at the Office of Advising and Career Development located in Hazel.
I mean, I just think it's super important, like, that you gotta, like, a resume is great, right? But you find a lot of people these days, it's all about who you know and the connections that you made, right? That's how you get that foot in the door. That's what pulls your application to the top of the stack.
Exactly.
So that's the advice I would give. Just go out, experience all your options, get involved in those career fairs. Go to the admission events that your school hosts. Just so you get a bigger picture and better understanding. So.
Well, that's kind of a segue to our next question. So, how did you get your current job here at Westminster?
So, well, it kind of went networking, right? Yeah. I mean, even though I played softball and basketball here, and just Westminster was just a huge part of my life, right? I mean, not to brag about our women's program, but we put Westminster women's basketball on the map, as far as just how we carried ourselves, and the championships. We made 2 NCAA tournament appearances. Like, that's big. That stands out for a program. So Westminster has always been very dear to me. And so when Tracy Braden left, so being at the Y, when Tracy was here, and I would always come over and just chat, hey, how's the team doing, things like that. So after she left, James Arnold came in, and just a fantastic guy. Like, he reached out to me, and he knew that I was in town, and he reached out to me. He was like, hey, I would love for you to come be a part of the women's basketball program as an assistant coach. And I was like, absolutely. Like, is that without question? I didn't even have to think about that. Like, and so it was just a perfect opportunity, because I was at the Y, I had a full-time job, and I would be paid to be an assistant coach. Like, absolutely, right? And so that's kind of how I got into my current position. After he left, he saw that I was ready and said, hey, I'm going to put it out there to Coach Mitchell, our AD, and say, hey, she's ready. And so that kind of slid me into the interim, or not interim, that promoted me to the head women's basketball coach. So after he left, so that's kind of how I came into the current position that I am in today. Kind of like, what you said about just networking. I feel like if I would have not made those connections with those people, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. So.
What topics about diversity and professional development do you wish could have been addressed while you were at Westminster?
I thought a lot about this, because, of course, we are in difficult times right now. And, I would say that for me personally, and I can't speak for, everybody, right? I can't speak for a lot of the minorities, but I would say for myself, gender equality is a big one that I felt while my time is here at Westminster, it was overlooked. People kind of accepted how things were and just went with it, right? I mean, it can quickly become a norm if nothing is addressed, right? And so that's what I kind of felt like I came into, like, this was the norm of, how this and this and this was, right? Also, actually, back when I was here, we had a lot of international. Westminster was big on international.
We have much larger.
Yeah, much larger. Yes, much larger. So it was just bigger in diversity. However, I don't think. I don't know. Maybe I was just a student and I just kind of overlooked things, right? You go through your email and you see what you want to see, type deal. But I don't ever know if there was truly diversity training. I think.
For students? For students,
yeah. Maybe faculty had that, but I don't think, and if it was, I don't know if it was really truly advertised. And I don't know if that's just kind of an avenue that it was a disconnect between athletics and, student life. Like, I don't know, but I felt like if there would have been more of that, there could have been some changes. Yeah. That we see today. I think, honestly, I really do think that this is a situation to where a lot of people talk, but there's very minimal action, right? And so, especially with the events that occurred over the summer, I think people want to reach out and connect, but they necessarily don't feel comfortable or they don't feel like they feel like if they do something, it's going to be frowned upon on them because they are speaking about Black Lives Matter or they're speaking about, other gender equality and things like that. Like they don't want to step into that because there is fear, honestly, as for myself. Just just being real, right?
Yeah.
I'm just being real. I feel like I can't lead a Black Lives movement on this campus.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, but maybe the fear of I could lose my job if somebody takes it the wrong way, right? Because people, their perception of she's only doing this because she's Black, right? You know, and not really seeing the whole context behind it, right? It's not that, I mean, all lives matter. It's not just Blacks, but what's being seen on TV and what the media presents, right, is a lot of Black lives being attacked, right? And so, I don't know. I just think that there's still fear with not standing up, but also fear of losing their careers over this, right? That's the reality of a lot of this. So,
if we could backtrack just a little bit to the lack of diversity talks and diversity dialogues and stuff for students particularly, I agree. There's very minimal exposure to that kind of stuff, and I was wondering, just from your perspective, what do you think that could look like for incoming freshmen, for current students now? There's plenty of programs that are offered just kind of as, if you want to come, you can. It's not required. But what does that look like on a level of just kind of giving people and students on this campus kind of a better cultural exposure to minority groups?
To be honest with you, I think it needs to start with athletics. I think a lot of the minorities on campus are involved on the sports team. I think that's where it needs to start from. Those conversations need to be had and formed and put into action from the students that are involved. Because, I mean, I think this is just with a lot of campuses. Like, if it's a student athlete, not saying a student athlete is better than another athlete. Not, please don't mix that up. But what I'm saying is that some people are seen more than others because they participate in an organization. It could be Greek life, if a minority is high up in Greek life, they're going to be seen and heard a little bit more, right, from their peers and things like that. And then it'll just kind of trickle down. Yeah. So I think that the training, needs to come from, I think, athletics. And maybe that comes from SAC as well, our Student Athlete Advisory Committee needs to do a little bit more on this as well. And so to reach out to all the students to get involved and to just be trained on these things. I think a lot of people don't understand, like, well, maybe they feel like they would offend somebody if they say this and that, or just not understanding everybody's background. I think it's super important for that, maybe going off topic here, but when I took over the program, I wanted to make it a point to make my team diverse, because I think it's super important that everybody understands that everybody comes from different backgrounds, and I'm starting to see that within my team. At first everybody was like, that's my teammate, but I don't really know my teammate because I'm afraid if I say something or do something, it might offend my teammate type deal. And so just when it's not, on the other end of that is like, she's not coming up to me because I'm Black and she's afraid I might snap on her or go off on her or what she said, But it's so amazing to see, where they all started at the beginning in August to where they are now, because everybody is like this, you know what I mean? And so I just think, honestly, it just needs to be educated more. So everybody understands and everybody's on the same page. Yeah. You don't have to agree on the same things, but at least you understand where each person is coming from. Definitely. That's the difference. It's just listening and understanding, right? So.
And accepting that we all don't have the same backgrounds or opinions. Absolutely.
Right, and letting them know it's okay if you have this belief and that belief.
Yeah.
like, it doesn't mean that I think any different towards you, right? And so it's just, again, knowing, understanding, and accepting. Absolutely.
I know as an adult person, I mean, I grew up with a diverse group of friends, and my family had a diverse group of people coming in and out of the house. But even now as an adult, I get kind of nervous asking specific questions of people of color. Like if I tell a student, I really like your hair, it's coming from my heart. I really do love the hair. But then I think later, was that offensive? If I said, I really like your hair today, because a lot of women of color might wear wigs and they have different things going on, and I just really love the different types of hairstyles that they have. But then later I think, I hope I didn't offend her by saying that. So even as an adult, I have those kind of reservations of whether or not I should say, even like make a compliment to someone.
And we definitely live in an era of like there's this whole cancel culture fear kind of where like we're always afraid. I think the presence of social media has made it a little like it's made us watch our words a little more, and I think it's caused people
it's like
to.
you have to be. I feel like you have to be politically correct.
Exactly.
Right.
And then what do you say? Because you want to be natural, but most people are naturally not politically correct.
You
when they
want to
speak.
be genuine, but you also don't want to be offensive.
Right.
But I think, I think you brought up a great point that we're at least we've made it to the point where we're asking ourselves the questions of like, was it offensive, or like we are at least are at the point of like we're wanting to make sure that we're doing our best to be patient, to be understanding, and to kind of take that next step and those kind of issues. And I think that's an excellent step for just anybody in general, is to just be mindful of what you're saying, and to be and try to understand other people's perceptions of what your words carry.
Absolutely.
But we're about halfway through if we want to do our little contest that we have planned. So we're going to have a single word. This is kind of like one of those radio talk show kind of contests where we'll give you a word. I'm speaking to the audience right now. We'll give you a word, and if you email that to careersrv at westminster-mo.edu. If you email us the special word in our podcast by next week, you'll receive a gift card.
So you have from October 9th to October 16th to email the word of the day to CareerServe, and you'll be entered to win a gift card to one of the local businesses in town.
Great. And Talisha, you have our word, don't you?
All right. So the word of the day, good people, is fantastic. Fantastic.
All right. So if you will email careersrv at westminster-mo.edu, and that'll be in the description of this podcast. That secret word, you will be entered to win a gift card. All right, so we can go ahead and keep diving into some of these questions. Awesome. Michelle, you'd like to take the lead on that?
Yeah, because you were talking about bringing your girls together on your team, and I'm sure you had some specific exercises or, maybe even role playing. But how would you get students from small communities that are coming to Westminster that maybe didn't have a diverse population, or maybe there's some high school students that came from larger schools, say in St. Louis or Kansas City, and they don't see as much diversity on campus here, but they did in high school? What kind of advice would you give to students entering who may not have interacted with students of color? What kind of advice?
I think you have to go into it with an open mind approach.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on, people kind of being fearful of saying things to offend somebody, I think that, I think people, I feel like if they have that open mind approach, they won't be so quick to judge. You know what I mean? They won't be so quick to judge, how someone may look, or how someone may dress, or what they might say, or the music that they listen to. I think that if they are willing to have that open mind approach, I think there will be more of a connection that they would feel with others and their peers, to where they would feel like they can start something and grow something along the lines of maybe it's starting a club, right? Maybe it's getting more involved in reaching out to not only the Westminster community but the Fulton community as well. The Fulton community is a very diverse community. It's not like, you come into some institutions that I've been to, Carlinville, Illinois, I didn't see a lot, but I definitely think that the advice that I would give is, don't be afraid to get to know somebody and ask them, hey, what can we do to make the situation that you're feeling? How, maybe, how can we make that better for you? Just people can't be, so reserved and closed off and, not be willing to help their peer, So I just think, honestly, it's just making that connection, and you can't have stereotypes when you think about things or you think about approaching somebody. I've always been this way, Talk to that person, get to know that person, and feel them out. And then everybody, you shouldn't judge, but, obviously some people, judgment, I think people just tend to do that, I don't think they don't mean to, but it's kind of like
it's a natural,
it's what they're brought up into, brain, right? Yeah, if I was raised in an all-white family, I think whatever my family says or what they believe, because I'm brought up under that makes me, okay, well, this is what it's always been here, like, and it's vice versa, even black families, hey, this and this, you don't go this place, you don't go this place, they are wired to believe a certain thing. And so if we can just understand and continue to respect your family's beliefs, but also come to a point to where you can create your own beliefs, that will help make a difference. When you can be your own self and create your own views and values for your family, because then that's the difference there. If everybody is stuck on one viewpoint, you're not going to be able to grow. And then that's just,
the world doesn't change.
It doesn't change. It doesn't change. It becomes what it is.
So it's not. I keep asking you questions that aren't on our list, but it's a branch off of what you've been speaking about. What advice would you give to students of color or other minority groups who may be fearful of approaching students or faculty or staff with issues of racism or issues of, I really don't feel comfortable in this certain situation? I've spoken to several students in the past few years who don't feel comfortable bringing those concerns and those situations up because, one, they either don't think anything will change, or two, they don't want the spotlight to be put on them in case it gets across campus, which Westminster is basically a small town, and small towns, rumors and gossip flies within seconds. So what advice would you give to students of color, students of other minority groups who may be hesitant on sharing their specific situations or concerns with others?
You got to get over that fear. And I realize that I may be a hypocrite myself, right? But
fear is hard to get past.
It's hard to get past, especially when other circumstances are involved in that. Some feel like if I go to this teacher, or and I say this about this teacher, or they feel like, well, I have this teacher for the next couple of semesters, right? And then they feel like, oh, well, I don't want to burn any bridges type deal. Yeah, jeopardize my education or a grade or my GPA because of this professor, right? I think that it goes two ways here. I think professors need to understand where students are coming from, and students also need to understand and adapt to where kind of professors are coming from. But if to answer your question, it's, you can't be fearful, you can't be hesitant. If you want change, you've got to find a way to make that happen. Do you want to be loud about it? You can be, if that's your personality, great. I would just say make sure you're being respectable about it, and not being loud for the wrong reasons, right? Being loud for the wrong reasons lead to destruction. Exactly. It leads to destruction. Being loud for the right reasons goes into, all right, let's take the next step because you're being heard, right? And so I just think that you can't be quiet about your situations, even if it's, maybe you need to go to another person or a faculty member that's like you, that's a minority as well. And then you go and you tackle that approach. Because I also think too, if I have an issue, I reach out to my peers and I'm like, hey, am I seeing this the wrong way? Mm-hmm. Am I doing this the wrong way? What would you do? What can we do? I think, again, the meeting of the minds. The more voices you have, the better. And so if you don't speak up on an issue, it's not going to be heard. And so, something that was super impactful to me this summer was, my friends, my white friends reaching out to me and saying, hey, this is unbelievable stuff. I'm sorry that you feel this way or you're going through this. Like, that meant a lot. Because there comes a point to where a lot of people are being heard and they're just tired. They're exhausted because they've been trying to get this point across or this issue across, and they're just tired. They don't want to do anymore because they don't see anything changing. It's the same stuff after the same stuff. And so I truly believe the more you band people together, the more you'll continue to be heard. And it's not just minorities. It's got to be everybody. It's got to be whites. It's got to be blacks. It's got to be the Hispanics. It's got to be everybody. Because then you're speaking on a different level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that quote? Many hands make light the load, right? So if we have everyone working together, that makes change much easier.
Absolutely.
And how would you respond if you experienced racism on the job?
Unfortunately, I have, and it kind of goes back to, your question about what you wish you would have had, trainings and things like that, diversity training, what you wish you would have had as, while at your time at Westminster in that diversity training. And if I would have had that, understanding, the gender equality, understanding, even pay, the differences in pay between a white person and a black person. Like, maybe if I would have had that training, I would have seen that, caught that, or able to ask those questions to my employer, right? I think that's a lot of the things too, is that not a lot of people know the questions to ask sometimes when they are being interviewed for, or they attain the position, and then you always get the question, do you have any questions for us? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Some people are like, no, we're good, but then they don't realize the questions that they should be asking, and so the situation that I was in is that I was at the Y for probably this was probably my I take that back. This was probably my 8th year at the Y. And I realized, we just brought a new person on, pretty close, right? And when you're at the Y for a certain amount of time, you think, okay, I'm at this pay, and then I'm going to get this pay. It's just going to grow, right? Mm-hmm. And so we brought this person that just... this white person, right? And she was just graduated, and she came into a director role position at the same salary that I was at.
Gotcha.
And I was like, really? Like, I started at this salary, and now I worked hard to get here, and you're coming in at the same salary as me? Like, so again, did I really speak up on that? No. Why? Because if I did, nothing would have happened. Or I don't know, because I didn't speak up on it, maybe I should have, and maybe something would have happened. But I'm not a very confrontational person, and I don't like conflict. And you have to deal with conflict, and I'm getting better at that, right? but I at the time I just didn't want to deal with it. I was upset about it. Maybe said some words. Maybe didn't come into work a couple weeks all bubbly and cheery, but that also comes to a point to where you just have to draw the line. So I think that, experiencing that allowed me to be clear moving forward and understanding, all right, this happens, so the next job that I get or that I move on, I gotta make sure, all right, where are we at? How was this? I asked those questions that I should have asked in the first place. Does everybody start at this level? Do we, is this an entry level position of salary? Can we grow from that salary? And just asking those certain questions, maybe, I wouldn't have experienced what I did. I don't know, right? So.
I think statistically women have a really hard time having those conversations because we don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to be confrontational,
Right.
And I would imagine it's even higher for women of color because
Absolutely.
you have that extra piece that you're concerned about. So it's a struggle for...
It is, and just kind of, really just kind of the gender equality in pay was a big thing with the WNBA and the NBA, and so I was following that a little bit and did some research, and it's amazing. It's that Black women have I think it's, don't quote me on this, but it was roughly around 84% of being the breadwinners for their families, and mainly because those are single parent women, and whereas if you take a white woman, they are either in a position where their husbands are making money and they don't have to work, or when they do work, it's not a lot. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's a big thing today in today's society.
So just the last question before we go to our rapid fire questions. What are your tips on how to network with people in your field in the athletic industry?
Yeah, well, one, I touched on this earlier. You got to be able to volunteer. I had this conversation with my sociology and sport class that, if you want to get your foot in the door, you got to be willing to volunteer. And sometimes that doesn't come with paid volunteer hours. Sometimes it's just putting your time and understanding that you're gaining knowledge and understanding and things. So getting out and volunteering, right? Getting out and being seen by people, working events. MSHAA they put on tons of state championships. And that's a fantastic way to get your foot in the door is by volunteering. Hey, do you need security on this? Do you need, do you need whatever you need? I would love to help out with the state championships, because from there you're connecting with ADs, you're connecting with former ADs, retired ADs
From all across the state.
From all over.
Yeah.
All over.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that I loved about MSHAA was that I was able to broaden my network base. And so now as a coach, just kind of intertwining that together. Oh, I know such and such from this high school and this AD. So one, I'm gonna get into the game for free, and two, right?
Yeah.
And two, like I'm gonna have a good conversation. I'm gonna go and travel and meet up with this person, and so it's just great to network that, and even on top of that, like I really I want to, as a coach, I want to help make my girls successful after 4 years of playing for me, and so whatever field that they go into. Like, a couple of my girls want to go into coaching. And I'm like, okay, here, such and such, go knock on this person's door. Yeah. And it just connects them, right? And so getting out and networking and getting to know, and you can't be afraid to network, okay? And then once you do volunteer for a program or a big event, it's super important to send a follow-up email, a letter, and just say, I really appreciate you giving me that opportunity. That goes a long ways. Because that person remembers you from that. Oh, you're such and such. You wrote that nice letter to, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because it shows to them that you care. Some people volunteer. Oh, okay, I'll go and volunteer. And you know what I mean? They don't really want to do it because they do it for maybe it's a school thing or some, could be something else. They need the hours. But writing that letter says a lot. It says that you really valued working at that event, and who knows, the following year they could pay you because of it, or
you could get an internship.
You could get an internship.
Or a part-time job.
There you go. Tie it in there, right?
Job.
There you go.
I think, networking is such a scary word for a lot of people, and Michelle and I kind of joke, we're in career development. Neither one of us, I'm going to throw you under the bus, Michelle. I'm right there with you. Neither one of us really enjoy networking, but it's really, you have to think about, okay, take networking, that scary word, out of the picture. You're building your relationship. You
got to see the bigger picture.
And you're having conversations with other people. That's
Absolutely.
All networking is. There's no pressure on anyone to network, to find a specific job or whatever. You're having these conversations with people in the industry you want to be in to help you learn how to get from where you are as a student to where you want to be after graduation.
Absolutely.
So I think just realizing for students to realize networking doesn't have to be scary. Just think about it as you're just having conversations with people who have a job that you want to have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you're just there to learn.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think Mandy and I, since we're both introverts,
yes, it's so hard.
We've had the conversations like, I have a hard time networking for myself, but I could do it all day long for my students because you want them to grow, you want them to build those relationships, and you know how important that is.
Yeah.
So, and we just enjoy helping our students out and making those connections and seeing how important it is. So. But hopefully that will be another podcast in the future. Introverting
how
networking for introverts.
Network.
Nice. I can't wait to tune in.
So
Introverts, how to talk to people.
How not to break out into a cold sweat.
Socially awkward people.
So I guess we'll finish up here with the closing questions. These are based off James Lipton, the Actor Studio, if anybody's ever tuned into his program. So we're just going to do some rapid fire questions, and we're just going to shoot these off. So Talisha, what is your favorite word?
Fantastic.
What is your least favorite word?
Preposterous.
What sound or noise do you love?
Swish off the net.
What sound or noise do you hate?
A crackling water bottle.
My son does that all the time. I'm like, stop.
What profession other than your own would you like to attend?
Athletic training.
And what profession would you not like to do?
A swim instructor.
That's really, have you experienced that in the past? And you're like, heck no, I don't want to do this?
It's so crazy because my parents have a pool and I'm just, why do we have a pool? We don't even swim in it. And even if we do, I go back to this all the time. And I even went, so we all seen the Titanic, right. And so I
Jack
watched the
put a pin on
Titanic.
that door.
I watched the Titanic over and over. It's probably like one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
And I am like searching. Where is a black person on the boat? Like, where
They
is
died.
he?
They died
Did they?
because they were in the bottom. They were in the like servants or what is it?
Well,
class?
yeah,
So they
What
were
was-
below the
the
boiler?
steerage.
Yeah, they were in like the steerage with
Yeah.
like Jack
Really?
and his
I imagine
friends.
it had some.
No,
sort of-
No.
You mean like seeing them in the movie?
In the movie.
Oh, I don't even know.
I don't think I saw one. And then I went to the Titanic Museum in Branson,
Yeah.
and I scanned the list of who was the passengers on the boat. And I didn't think I seen a black name. I don't think so. But that's just my point. The whole point of it is that we don't really swim. There are some black Olympic swimmers. I'll give them that. They got to be mixed with something. But I'm telling you, and people agree. I was like, hey, y'all seen this? No, but in all reality, we do. I do get in about the 3 feet. 4 feet. We're good.
I can't handle a Sandra Bullock movie where she goes in space and then she gets
Gravity.
Gravity.
I hate space movies because I panic because I think, oh my gosh, what if I go into space and I am left
What
So
out
if-
can
there
you do plane
dying?
rides?
I can do plane rides, but I have a bit of an anxiety
Anxiety with
issue,
it.
so I have to calm myself down with some medications.
Fair. Yeah, I just think as a swim instructor, if you're on your own, I'll get you whatever you need to save yourself. But I'm not the one to do it. So
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into our first episode of After the Tassel. Talisha, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to send everybody off with?
just again, thank you for having me. It was a great time. Loved just speaking on the issues and just putting it out there,
Right.
And so I think this is going to be an awesome. This is just an awesome program that you guys are doing. So
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Talisha.
Don't forget to submit the word of the day that we had mentioned earlier in today's episode, and don't forget that we will be releasing these every Friday at around 4 p.m. Be on the lookout for promotional material for our upcoming guests. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to us. We're happy to be there for you. And if you need any help with career development or any sort of advising regarding your future,